Hello there, everyone. My name is Nick, and welcome to the Unleashed Secrets of Shopify webinar. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be taking you through some really cool panelist questions with the series of panelists that we've managed to pull in from various different areas, Shopify, and then a few of our customers mainly. The format today, we will be focusing on a bit of Q&A between the panelists and a bit of discussion, but we will have a dedicated Q&A section at the very end of the webinar where we can address your questions. And so if there is any questions that you already have or questions that maybe pop up while we're discussing and we're talking, please pop them through into the Q&A section, which should just be at the bottom of your Zoom meeting. If we don't manage to get to all the questions, because I'm expecting to have a fair few, please make sure that you put your full name and your email in that questionnaire, and then we can email you after. We'll also be sending you a follow-up email at the very end of the session, or today at some point. And within that email, you'll have this capacity to contact us directly. You can respond to the email directly, or you can ask some questions there as well. And with that in mind, guys, I'll start to introduce some of the people here. Before we get into the panelists, I'll just say that a lovely thank you to my colleague Danny, who is going to be sort of monitoring us today in the webinar and just keeping an eye on the Q&A section while we're while these questions are sort of coming through. And here she is, Danny.
I'll say a quick hi. I'll be hiding in the background.
Be lurking in the background. And of course, again, my name is Nick, and I'm one of the product owners here at Unleashed. So with that little bit of housekeeping in mind, let's get stuck in and introduce our awesome panelists. To start off with, we've got Jono from Shopify.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jono Lai. I'm on the agency partnerships team at Shopify in APAC. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here to host this webinar with you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jono. And then, as I said, we've got some really nice customers that have volunteered to come and join us today, the customers of Unleashed and also Shopify. And I'll let them introduce themselves. Perhaps we can start off with you, Tina.
Hi, my name is Tina. I'm the e-commerce lead at Two Islands, a health and beauty company based out of Auckland. And thank you for having me today.
No, thank you, Tina. That's awesome. And then last but not least, of course, is Bailey. Bailey, say hi.
Hi.
Please.
So yeah, my name is Bailey Meredith. I am a co-founder and director of Baina. Baina is a design-led organic toweling brand based in Auckland and Sydney.
Awesome. Awesome. So as you can see, attendees, we've got plenty of experience from some customers that are very successful in their fields using Unleashed and Shopify. And of course, we've got Jono here as well to take us through Shopify itself and be our sort of Shopify expert here along the way. So let's dive into some of the questions. I mean, the first place to start is, of course, just to find out a little bit more about the companies and perhaps maybe how long you've had your e-commerce store, your Shopify store. So Bailey, perhaps you can fill us in on those details.
Yeah, sure. So we launched as a brand in October of 2019, 6 months before COVID hit. And our e-commerce store was pretty much launched at the same time, maybe a little bit earlier. But yeah, so running for about 3 years now.
Cool. All the way through this like craziness of COVID itself, isn't it?
Yeah,
which is pretty wild. It's amazing. 6 months just before. Tina, what about yourself?
So with Two Islands has had a e-com presence from 2018, I believe. I joined in 2021. So I got a little bit of background of the e-com store. It was on Shopify. Then it replatformed to a custom platform. And then about 6 weeks prior to the first lockdown in 2021, it replatformed back to Shopify within like a 6-week period. So a very, very quick replatform back to Shopify. And I think that probably speaks credit to how easy and familiar devs and agencies are with Shopify.
Yeah, that is quite amazing, isn't it? You've gone back and forth, Tina, which is quite a crazy experience, and with that 6-month turnaround, a 6-week turnaround, things must have been very hectic. What sort of made you choose to go back to Shopify, if you don't mind me asking?
Part of in Two Line's history, there was someone on the board who had a lot of experience with another platform and made a very good case for going to that platform. They decided to go their ways, as they do, and there needed to be a very quick solution. So Julia chose to go to Shopify and had a agency in the same co-working space that she was in. They worked very quickly together, and luckily they had that Shopify store going 6 weeks before, and it's the same theme that we're working on, that we're using right now before we launch in a couple of weeks.
It's amazing. That's a great story, because I really think that just underlines how easy Shopify is to use, and then also how configurable it can be. So you can really sort of match these styles that you had with the previous software. Amazing stuff. Must be great for you to hear though, Jono, these sort of success stories.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of our key value props. It's the speed to market, really. So it's great to hear an example.
Great to see it. And I'm sure for any of the panelists on the call right now, sorry, not panelists, participants on the call right now that haven't got a Shopify, that might be a really nice way for you to have that introduction to Shopify with those value points as well. Now, speaking of Shopify, guys, one of the things I didn't say as part of the housekeeping is that we'd love to do a few polls while we're doing this webinar, and you are more than welcome to participate, or you can perhaps not participate if you don't want. And this is a good time for us to dive into the first poll, which is really, what's your, which is, do you have a Shopify store? And so let me just pull that up. Hold on a second, guys. That's the wrong one I had there. Oh, no, this is not an official poll. If you do have a Shopify store already, we would love to hear about it. Just put a yes in the Q&A, and we can sort of go from there. And we can all just forget this really awkward moment when I was going to put a poll in and it just didn't work.
Why don't we just ask them, if you have a Shopify store, stick your link in the Q&A so we can see it.
Oh, that's not a bad idea at all, Tina. Yes, we would love to see that, and then we can check it out, guys, and see all your cool little configurations that you might have. Now, while we're doing that, let's dive into some of the other questions as well. Now, Jono, you're as the Shopify expert, you must see a multitude of different stores and different configurations, different designs and styles. Is there anything that you've sort of noticed as a winning formula?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Nick. And I guess my answer to it is really not involving Shopify. It's because your online store is just one of the many channels your customer gets to engage with your brand. So really my suggestion for a winning formula is to really create an authentic brand, not just the product, and that really aligns to why you're in business. And I've seen that those types of companies and those types of merchants are the ones that win.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, is this something that Tina or Bailey, that you guys would agree on?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
You both have very unique stores, so it doesn't surprise me. Sorry, Tina, I didn't mean to talk over you there.
No, it's okay. What I wanted to add is I think everything Jono has said has been absolutely accurate, but in addition to that, any winning formula really needs to narrow in on what the customer likes, prefers, wants to see from a website. You need to align what the platform can do to what the customer wants.
For sure. If it can't handle the goals that you're trying to achieve with your authentic brand, well, it's just not the software for you, is it? And Shopify has shown itself to be quite configurable, as we've said, and therefore can hopefully help out in these sort of areas as well.
Yeah.
Tina and Bailey, was there any specific considerations that you guys had when you were building the stores?
I think for us, obviously, like, we just wanted to make sure that first and foremost our brand was communicated as well as possible, and as clearly and as refined as possible as well. I think that was one of the major considerations when working with our web developers on what we wanted to achieve with the Banner site. I think in terms of why we chose Shopify as a platform, I had previously worked on Shopify with another brand or business that I started. And prior to that, any other businesses that I'd worked in had custom platforms, I think similar to what Tina was speaking about before with the original or the second version of the Two Islands site. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, you want to work with best in class. And I think that Shopify has really shown that as an e-commerce platform, they are best in class. And so you kind of, there's just that automatic, I don't know, trust and assurance that what you're going to be working with is going to actually be able to deliver on what it is you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And our goal as a company is really just to build the best product for our merchants, for entrepreneurs starting out, up to merchants that have IPO'd. So, you know, along the whole journey, us as Shopify, we want to be able to support our merchants through that entire journey.
Yeah.
Was this a big factor for you as well, Tina?
I don't know if I would call it a factor per se, but it was definitely a benefit knowing that Two Islands was already on Shopify. This might be a little in the weeds, but when I first came on board, one of the things we did consider was whether we do Shopify Plus, which has additional functionality. And that was really the only question we were really looking around and researching about, because Shopify is just so stable. You don't have to worry about servers. You don't have to worry about upkeep. You don't need to worry about a lot of maintenance because it just works. And that frees up the rest of the team to focus on other parts of the business. So it's really, really nice to have something. Jono, do you guys consider yourselves a SaaS service? Or
Yes, we're software as a service. Yeah.
So just not having to deal with servers, which in some configurations may make a lot of sense, but for organizations that want to be nimble and quick, having something secure that works is just a big benefit.
Totally.
Yeah. And definitely, like, from an agency perspective side, you know, you don't want to be paying developers and agencies to be hosting your servers of another platform. You want to be spending your limited budget on design and dev, on, you know, things that actually make an impact and you know, increase your revenue overall.
Yeah, I think one of those things with when you see the word custom, people tend to go, "Oh, that sounds awesome," because we can muck around with it. But at the end of the day, I think Bailey, you've used the best phrase ever: best in breed or best in design, alongside with this idea of it being cloud-based and reliable along the way. Particularly if you don't want to be going to your these developers that you've contracted in to say, "Hey, I need a new photo. I need a new template for the look of my my store." And speaking of photos, actually, Jono, do you think photography does take a big part or plays a big part in the way that an e-commerce site plays?
Definitely, it's one of the biggest contributing factors to shoppers buying on your store. For example, just remember that the more photos you have of each product, the less customer service questions you're going to get through your CS channels, like either live chat or through email. So yeah, it's a huge part of it. I guess for some hints and tips on best type of photo structure or group, I definitely think about, you know, how it relates to your overall brand, and, you know, making sure that they're clean and uniform. You know, pictures with product images on a white background are really helpful too, and how they're scaled and structured across the entire grid. So I think that's really important. As well as having photos from every angle of the product too. So, you know, for example, if you're selling shoes, it's being able to see from the top side, I guess underneath, so what type of soles the shoes have, and any kind of small details that are very unique to the product is super important. As well as having the photos in context. Definitely, like, having someone wear the shoes with different outfits, you know, kind of you're adding that inspiration to, you know, you could wear these pairs of shoes with this outfit in these types of occasions. So having that aligned as well is pretty good. And then one thing with Shopify is that we've got a zoom function within that's built into the platform. So, you know, we recommend high resolution photos when it comes to it, with a minimum size of a square image, about 2048 by 2048 pixels. That's our like standard recommendation, because anything smaller, you could the zoom function might, you know, get a little bit blurry.
When we turned that on, we saw our conversion rates go up.
Awesome. Because yeah, exactly. You want to be able to zoom in on the detail on specific things on the labeling if you want to see that. How if you're in clothing, different textures that are aligned with each other. All those kind of things allows the customer to zoom in and actually have a closer look. And then if you want to go the next level, I know they're really expensive to produce right now, but videos of your product. So how do your products look in motion? How do they move? Like how do they sit on your shoulders, etc.?
That's amazing, Jono. Cheers. I think Tina, you made some good points there about that stat on that conversion rate. That's an amazing stat. Is there any other things that you've seen occur with the changes in photography that you've done with the Zoom?
With not as of late, because it was a very simple decision to just see what happens when you turn it on, and it wasn't like a big exorbitant test that I had set up. It was basically, okay, last 7 days, this was the conversion rate on certain products. I turned on Zoom. Let's test it for the next 7 days. And we saw an uptick. So we turned on Zoom across the site where we could. Some could quibble, 7 days is not long enough time, but it was long enough for me to determine actually this was a good move to do. And I think customers like being able to see detail, especially for brands like Two Islands. I'd argue Bain is like this as well, that are very intentional with the decisions they make with design, with how things are being portrayed, that we want to show off that intentionality down to minute detail. So Zoom really allows us to show, the beautiful packaging, the information that we provide to allow the consumer to decide if this product's for you or not. It probably is, but the information is there displayed beautifully. So Zoom really allows, if you created something beautiful, Zoom only allows the customer to just see how beautiful it is and to be wowed by it.
Makes sense. We're all such visual people nowadays, aren't we? Tina, sorry, Bailey. Oh my God. Really floundering today, aren't I, guys?
No, you're good.
I've got to get a few of these out the way, I think, and hopefully the participants aren't sort of all like starting to leave. But Bailey, I mean, what's your approach to photography?
I mean, photography is such a huge part of our business because we use it obviously in product shops, but we also use it to convey emotion and connection to the brand. So, a huge portion of our budget gets placed into photography. But I would say for us, again, and we've only been around 3 years, I mean, similar to Two Islands, a little bit younger. It's a constant refinement and reflection. Like, this shoot was great for these reasons. We didn't quite hit the mark here. Also, too, like, I think, especially when it comes to Shopify specifically, or our e-commerce platform, it is taking on board that customer feedback. And so, if there is a certain view or a certain angle or even color, I think obviously Bainer is hugely built around color. And so ensuring that the way that the color is displayed on our site is as accurate as possible. All of that has to be considered to ensure, again, similar to what Jono was saying, is that, you want to have this little customer service kickback or query. So you're trying to provide as much information through imagery as possible. So yeah, it's all taken into huge consideration.
Bailey, we have a Baina towel featured in our upcoming lifestyle shoot when the new
season
comes out. We do, with the nightcap product. It looks beautiful.
Amazing. Oh, I can't wait to see it.
That's a little plug in there between the two, between our two panelists. That's awesome. Great to see some synergy in that sort of area, guys. We've talked a bit about the setup of these stores and the photography around it in terms of and all the wins that we're seeing there. But was there any challenges that you guys maybe came across in the journey? That is,
Tina, I'll let you start.
No pressure. I think an ongoing question that we constantly take a look at is, Two Islands is a brand that's offering more and more new products. We have a very aggressive new product development pipeline. We have 2 products expected to go live by the end of the year. Plus, our founder, Julia, and the team are constantly looking at new products, new ways of packaging. What's the best way to serve the needs of our customer? And when we have those questions, we're also thinking, okay, how does that affect how our catalog's going to look like? And how do we want to structure our products? Do we want to have, say, everything is set up as one product? When do we want to use variants? And how does that fit into the way templates work? And what are customers expecting to see? So I'm not going to say I have the solution to that, but we are constantly having those conversations, because when you start off for being known for, say, 2 or 3 products, which in Two Islands case is pea protein, marine collagen powder, and Happy Gut, now branching out into more supplements and sleep-inducing supplements and joint health supplements, we definitely have to be a bit more intentional of how we do the catalog and scale it up in such a way that it's sustainable. So we may not know necessarily what that looks like just yet, but we are thinking about, well, what does Shopify recommend? What are our developers recommending? And what are our customers expecting? And what's the best way we need to be merchandising our products as we get bigger and bigger?
Yeah.
Bailey, what about you? I would like to hear your challenges as well, if you don't mind. But that's fantastic though, Tina.
I think challenges for us have actually been very similar to what Tina said. So when we started, we had 7 SKUs, and now we have, I think, 27, and we're, constantly we're releasing 2 sort of ranges a year. And so when we started out, the architecture of our Shopify store was very different to what it needs to be now. And just navigating that and trying to work out how best to grow that navigation and grow the way that we kind of categorize and format our product pages and things like that. I think the other biggest challenge that we've had from e-commerce is distribution and logistics. So when we started, my background's in fashion. Sending a silk dress to the other side of the world is very different from sending a set of towels. And then again, you throw in a pandemic, you throw in inflation, rising fuel costs, all of that, distribution has been huge for us. And so that's probably been our biggest challenge for the last, I would say, actually, since we started.
Sounds like you're getting to overcoming them. And just by the way, participants, if you are not participants, yes, participants, if you are listening and you're wondering to find out more about the logistics side, keep in mind that we will be doing further webinars available. Now, while we're talking about challenges, now I do have a good poll that we can chuck in. We want to hear what are your biggest challenges as someone who uses Shopify or e-commerce in general that we'd love to hear. So I'm just going to launch that. You should see that pop up in your Zoom meeting, and you can do that. Cool. And we can see those go through. And what we'll do is we'll sort of share them with you after the poll sort of commenced. So we'll just use that for a couple of questions. We'll give everyone a bit of breathing room, including myself, I'm sure. And yeah, we'll dive in as the poll sort of starts to progress. Perhaps Danny, I'm not sure how long we want to keep these polls going, and whether or not you can end them or not, but it's entirely up to you. Danny's going to be chatting by me, by the way, team. We shouldn't really hear her, unless you think she's just ignoring me, which she very well could.
It's all right, Nick. I'm
Cool.
not ignoring you. I think that should be, we'll give it maybe another 10 seconds and then we'll close it off.
Yeah, we're definitely getting some good engagement, which is awesome, 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 awesome. Now, while people are chucking these in and we're having a think, we're getting a bit of breathing space, one of these challenges that sort of jump out straight away is, of course, COVID and timings. Tina, Bailey, was there anything specific around the COVID period that you guys experienced and then were able to overcome?
Which COVID period?
Well, I mean, we've had the recent one, particularly which affected us in New Zealand quite a bit. You know, with that heavy lockdown. I know that Australia and Victoria had some quite ongoing issues across the whole of 2021. So, dealer's choice, really, Tina. Up to you. Tell us about COVID in general for you.
I think so. For context, I joined Two Islands about March 2021. So I'd been in the e-commerce space prior to that. I was working in e-commerce during the first big lockdown in New Zealand. That was early 2020. At least that first time going through it in 2020, there was a lot of unknowns, whether can you ship things, can you not ship things, who's an essential service, who's not an essential service. Eventually those all got ironed out. So I think coming into the 2021 lockdown, basically 1 year ago now, if you were in e-commerce in 2020, you knew what the state of play was going to be for the next lockdowns. The sort of things that we were juggling were, we did see sales go up a little bit because people were shopping from home. There was a lot more working from home. So we did see jumps in like pea protein, so people can make a shake while they, have time to work out at home, or they just want to do something quickly and it feeds the kids and makes them happy. I don't recall anything like that was super sharp and painful, but basically the same issues everyone else had. There were supply chain issues, there were delivery issues, there's delivery backups, and not to disrespect anyone working in those spaces. It was really, really hard for everyone. But I think sometimes I felt like we were taking things day by day based on were deliveries getting out, how late were deliveries getting out, for sending things overseas, how long is that taking, what's the backup at the ports, this, that, and another. So I mean, in those sort of situations, you kind of do what you can to relieve blockers. And if there is something that just can't be dissolved, you work around it. And I don't think I'm going to be able to give a much more concrete answer, because I just don't think there's anything like revelatory to give. I think a lot of the challenges that are happening in lockdown, if they're not the same now, they've evolved into something different. There's still, sometimes delivery delays, they're not as bad. There's still supply chain issues. There's other things in the world going on that are affecting things. So if you're, a flexible business, you're constantly like readjusting to conditions to figure out what do you need to do to keep the cogs running. I don't know, Bailey, how has it been going for you?
Yeah, I would say very similar in the sense of, we had only been operating as a business for 6 months before that first lockdown hit. And so over the last sort of, the main 2 years of COVID for us were, the challenges were stock supply. So all of our products made in Portugal. And obviously like manufacturers closed for a long period of time. We were also just so young and so vulnerable. I think at that stage we had no idea how the pandemic was going to affect our business. We had no idea how to sort of prepare or protect ourselves from those sort of like outcomes, and it was a whole lot of guessing. And what actually happened was that, again, like that first lockdown, we quickly learned that we needed our site to be better than it was, because everyone moved to, for us anyway, in the category in which we play, which is, homewares, everyone was reflecting on their environments, and no one had, a lot of disposable income during that time. If people had it, obviously lots of people had, really horrible and tough times. But I think what we found was that the people that had disposable income still coming in, that would maybe traditionally allocate that money to things like fashion or travel, were now redirecting that cash into homewares, health and well-being. And so we saw big jumps early on as well, but we quickly felt that maybe there were all these functions that we hadn't prioritized at the start of building our site that all of a sudden we needed yesterday. And so that, I think that's been an ongoing thing for us. Again, I come back to same with the photography, you're constantly reacting to what the market requires of you to ensure that you're providing the best possible experience through your e-commerce site. And so that, and then constantly being sold out and having to live in this world of pre-order and sell out was huge for us.
Yeah, it's a different world we live in, isn't it? And ever changing. So, I mean, you've outlined it quite quite eloquently, I think, there, Bailey. You need to be agile. You need to be able to react. And I think, you know, Tina and yourself have shown that you can do that, which is awesome. Now, before I start to ramble too much, team, we have stopped the poll. Keep in mind that what is your biggest Shopify challenges at the moment? And I'm just going to share the results there. We can see very clearly that, and hopefully everyone should be able to see a sort of poll thing pop up there with what your biggest Shopify challenges are at the moment. And it's quite interesting. The big one here is marketing there at 37%. So I'm hoping that some of the photography tips and tricks we've heard from the three panelists there are going to help you out. What we'll do is we will just let everyone have a look at that and have a little think. And then from there, we'll dive into the next sort of questions there. Now, we've been talking about COVID a little bit, but we don't want to dig into COVID. It's not the only thing that's sort of going on. I'm sure there is a number of different trends that are sort of happening. And perhaps, Jono, maybe you've got an idea about what sort of trends you might be seeing or what you guys are seeing there with e-commerce in 2022 and moving forward, you know, to the next year, 23, and perhaps beyond.
Sure do. It's really interesting, Nick, that marketing was one of the biggest pain points at the moment faced by the participants here. And that is actually one of my first trends that I wanted to share. It's the rising acquisition costs on, you know, the Facebook, Google, the tollways of the world. They're really forcing brands to consider what their long-term relationships with their customers look like. You know, these costs keep going up, which means there's merchants are spending more and gaining less for that. You know, so how do we overcome that? It's like, how do we build a brand, like I mentioned earlier, to really help attract and retain these types of customers? How do you build loyalty into your existing customer base and have that grow your brand overall? So combining your long-term with your brand building, combine that with your short-term performance marketing. So, you know, like Tina and Bailey have said, you know, testing and learning from what experiments you run. That's really how you can kind of plan for this in the future. So that's the first one. The second one, so social commerce is really on the rise. So sales through social media channels around the world are expected to triple by 2025. As e-commerce is migrating from your social media platform, migrating to social media platforms. So a couple of these channels are really important. One of them is live chat. So what we found is that live chat is a really important touch point for your customers or potential customers to get in touch with your brand. And this could be across, you know, on your Shopify site, or this could be across all your different social channels too. So being able to meet the customers where they are is really important. And it's kind of like folks wanting to converse with brands the way they do with their friends, and that's through like social media apps. So that's one thing, one of them. And then also video is huge too. It's starting to grow a lot. And some social first approaches, like it can include like behind the scenes live streams, video consultations, personalized product recommendations with like consultant, kind of bringing another element of that live chat into that customer engagement. So that's the second one. And finally, what has happened with COVID is it's really accelerated the next phase of omni-channel commerce and shopping. And what does that mean? It's meaning as in the post-pandemic world, where people coming back to in-person shopping, but customers are expecting a much better and much more seamless experience through that as well. So what does that really mean? It means like being able to connect with your customers or having your customers being able to connect with you across the different channels in store and online. For example, coming in store, if I'm shopping at a retail store, being able to have them pull up my order history if I'm a loyal customer to that brand, and pulling that up and understanding, okay, can I build in offers for these customers that shop online and in store, and then actually reward your customers on the in-store experience. As well as that, things like, you know, buy online, pick up in store, returns in store, all that kind of stuff, like making sure that the customer experience is really married together.
Would you agree with that, Bailey?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Jono said sounds like everything that we're starting to experience. I think obviously it depends on the business first and foremost, and what's relative to the way that you operate and who your customer base is. I definitely think the comments around, customer service and kind of treating your customers or speaking to them and allowing them access to you in the way that you would a friendship. So as an example of that, our Instagram, I still, even in the growth that we've had, and now that we're no longer a team of 2, we're a team of 11, I think, I still take care of all the direct messages on Instagram. And I do that for a number of reasons. It's because we get so many different types of communication through that channel now. It's how we, it was one of the first tools we used when we started to grow Bainer. And so for me, because I know every facet of our business, from, where our stock is to who we're collaborating with and what opportunities we're looking out for, like that is the most direct way that I can communicate with our community. And so I find that incredibly beneficial, and, I hope to never have to give that up. I think the same goes for, live chat. We have live chat on our site. It's just about trying to, I think for us, and same with our site, because we don't have bricks and mortar and we are only e-commerce, we want to be able to ensure that any customer either has access to as much information about who we are and the transparency of our business as they want. So it's a balance of not being overwhelming with information, but also allowing somebody to go on a journey to really deep dive into what it is that my business partner Anna and I have created. And, again, I think it comes down to post-pandemic world of, we spent so much time online during that time, we're exploring and discovering new brands. We have customers all around the world, but you want to be able to remove some of those hurdles or concerns about buying internationally, as an example. And so again, like providing that support and communication to allow the customer to feel like it's as seamless as possible, kind of like what Jono said. So obviously he was talking about seamless between all, the omni channels of retail. We're kind of talking about it from being seamless of whether you're buying in the US, Canada, Portugal, Australia, New Zealand, wherever it might be, and trying to just connect with that customer, because ultimately we're playing in this very digital space. So you've got to have that human element available.
Bailey, does Bainer's e-commerce store serve all internationally, or do you, okay? You have individual stores.
We have multiple. Well, we have 2. Moving to multiple shortly. Yeah.
Multiples of 2. Tina, I mean, do you have multiple storefronts there? Do you guys go international?
No, we just use the one. Okay. And it's priced in NZD, but we ship internationally with DHL.
Okay. And what do you guys do on your end for that personal touch that we're seeing with someone like with Bailey's at Bainer?
So our founder, Julia, still does customer service as well, like Bailey. So there's 2 people probably full-time on customer service, be it through emails to hello@2island.com, be it DMs on Instagram, or the chat functionality on Facebook. We also have a little, it's not a chat bot, live chat when you first arrive on the site. And it's funny that last week we were talking about this, and the number of people who say, yeah, just having a look around the site. Like, we have like a little prompt when you open the chat window that says, hi, can we help you with anything? And people literally just saying, just having a look, like, no, enjoy, let us know if you need anything. Like, that's really, really nice. It humanizes our customers. So we definitely want to have a good relationship with our customers. And when we do these customer service communications, it allows us to do that. And it's nice to get that instant feedback from the customer, because it's so easy to just feel like you're behind the screen and it feels a little bit sterile and not really like warm and fuzzy. So definitely try to do that. And it's important to have that sort of communication, because at the end of the day, we think we are our customers. We're thinking in the back of my mind, are we willing to buy this product? Do we feel like the service that we're getting makes us feel like we're a valued part of this brand experience? Was there anything more to that? Were we just talking about customer service, or were we also talking about like marketing? Oh,
yeah. Well, I was going to dive into marketing from there, actually, Tina, and I would love to hear a little bit more. But first, perhaps maybe, Jono, can you weigh in, Jono, in terms of how you're seeing these live chats and how that works in marketing space for Shopify?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what Bailey and what Tina just described is like the best practice example, really, of getting to really understand what your customers want and need, and then from a planning perspective, being able to develop new products from gathering that information. So that's really important. From a marketing point in general, though, I would really zoom out and look at the entire end-to-end customer experience, from all the different types of copy and digital ads that you have on the internet, on the different channels, to how you're showing up on the different social channels, to then funneling that into your Shopify store. Just remember, once they hit your store, it's not about marketing, it's about selling to them now. So are you still talking in that same brand voice to your customer? Is this brand story the same? And then bringing them through that buying journey and then up to checkout. So once they check out, it's really understanding, okay, well, like what was mentioned before around shipping and around delivery. Like, are you, if it's going to take a little bit longer, are you in touch with your customer throughout that point of the journey? Because until they have the product in their hands, like, it's not over. But even at that point, it's not over, because what happens if they have an issue? What happens if they have questions? What if they want to share on socials? Like, it's a huge cycle that never stops. But essentially, you always really want to be engaging and making your customers like your biggest fans. And that's how you really build your brand over time.
That personal touch is such a big deal for that, isn't it? So you feel like you know the person behind that screen, and you feel like you're being cared about. You're not just being sold to and marketed to, even though you are. You get that feeling. You are. Let's be honest, it's a real world, but it is so important, so important. Tina, I mean, once you get them in the door, you marketed them, you got them there. How do you then convert that into a sale, into a big sale, and try and get the most out of this journey that your customer is on?
I thought you were going to lob me a softball there.
Oh, okay. Well, we can move to Bailey. You can have a think about it.
No, I'm happy. I'm happy to. I think when we get people to the site, it kind of depends on how do they end up on the site. If they come through social, they might be conditioned to be looking through one thing. If they come through a Google search, they might be looking for another thing. If they're coming through Google Shopping, they might have another thing in mind. So what we try to do on the site is structure in such a way that someone can find quickly what they're looking for. Examples how we've done something like this is in our menu, you have shop by product. If you know exactly what your product is, so let's say you're searching on Google and you search Happy Gut, chances are that's going to take you straight to Happy Gut. But if you end up on the home page, you can find Happy Gut immediately as well. If you're shopping for a solution to a concern, such as I would like to upkeep the appearance of my skin, then you might be Googling hair, skin, and nails, or you might be on Instagram with looking up something off Two Islands. We want to get you towards our beauty offerings as soon as possible. So if you end up on the homepage, you can shop by concern and go straight to a collections page of all of our beauty items. Once they're searching through, trying to figure out what they're looking for, we want to make sure our product pages have all the content they need to make a confident decision of what they're looking for. Some people might only need to read a product description. That's the case. Add to cart, go on. If someone's still kind of in the perusing phase and they want to learn a little more, they might be doing some comparison shopping. Ton of information below the fold, and we work with an SEO agency to make sure we're really optimizing for the sort of search terms that people might be looking for that our product might be a solution to. Once we figured out our product pages, we want to make sure that buying process from PDP to checkout is as streamlined as possible. So we have, Google Pay Engage, we have Apple Pay Engage, we have markers for your Afterpay and your lay-by in case you want to pursue one of those. It's a bit of a balancing act. Sometimes you want to get someone to go straight to checkout, and then you have some people who want to take a look at their cart and see what they're buying and have a bit more real estate to see everything, especially on mobile. Like, it's really easy to just want to go straight, but sometimes you might want to have a moment to just deliberate your purchase and then realize, okay, yeah, this is what I want, and move forward. So I think the way we try to make the customer journey as efficient as possible, but also worthwhile for the customer and help them make a confident decision, is that we're constantly on the site ourselves, putting in orders for ourselves, putting in orders for, friends, and making sure that there's an issue in the customer journey, someone on the team is going to bring it up, and we can fix it very quickly, because it's really easy to go into a Shopify product and find where you need to fix the information and move on.
Doing that testing all yourself, so you're confident in your customers' confidence. I love that. And by the way, great stuff on the answer for a curveball question. You nailed it there, Tina. But we still want to hear what Bailey, what your thoughts are on this area.
So essentially, like, to summarize, I think for us, it's all about just, again, like knowing what the customer, not knowing what the customer wants, but like having an understanding of what the customer wants and needs. I think for us, or one of the biggest sort of lessons that I've always like lived by, is that some of the, at the end of the day, when it comes to customer service, when it comes to being marketed to, whatever it might be, just think about yourself. How do you like to be communicated with? How do you like a resolution to be found when there's an issue? How, all of these sorts of things. I do a lot of online shopping. We engage with our staff a lot. Obviously, Anna and I engage with friends and industry connections on, ultimately, like, what do you enjoy? Because at the end of the day, we're all pretty similar. We all like to be treated with respect. We all like transparency. And ultimately, I think we really like that proactive approach. Anna and I have always talked about being solutions-based and proactive with our communication. So you mentioned at the very beginning, issues like delays in shipping and things like that. It's really important, I believe, to get as the seller or the merchant to get on top of that conversation and get in there before the customer has the opportunity to kind of come at you and say, hey, where's my order? Hey, what's going on? And I think, some of the biggest lessons that I've ever learned, and I think I say this to a lot of my team as well, like the biggest lessons you can learn are from other people's mistakes. So when you have a bad shopping experience, customer service experience, like, take the opportunity to really analyze that and understand what it was that made it so disappointing. And then basically do the opposite, like figure out what would have made it better and then apply that to your business.
Bailey, I don't think I've ever heard I know I had never heard a bad thing about Bana. So I find it hard to believe there's learnings.
No. And I have to say, like, we've been very lucky in that regard, but there's always, there is always, people have different perceptions or different expectations. My order, you said it would be here in 1 to 2, it's taken 3. It's that, like, there's always going to be a customer that maybe doesn't align with what you think is reasonable. But at the end of the day, if you flipped it and you put the shoe on the other foot and you had an issue, how would you like to be dealt with and how would you like that resolved? And I think that's always been our approach. And the same comes to marketing. How many emails do you want to be receiving each week? And what do you want to see in those emails? So we have those conversations as well.
Everyone on this call has been a consumer in some point. So I think that makes a lot of sense there, Bailey, 100%. Now, with this in mind, guys, is ready for another poll. So I'm just going to launch this up. We'll take a minute in this time, and then we'll share the results, see how we go, and then move on to the remaining 10 minutes of our of the webinar. Now, we did want to do a bit of Q&A, and so I'll be seeing what Danny says in terms of when we want to stop. I just realized I have to look at my watch to keep time. Oh no, it's got something on there. Perfect. Okay, we'll see as this sort of ticks its way through. Customer service is an interesting one, isn't it, guys? Because you can please some of the people all the time, but you can't and you can please all the people some of the time, but you can't please all the people all the time, can you?
I
And
think most people are pleased when you make an effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
When you show empathy towards them,
Yeah.
and understanding their perspective at that certain point in time, like that's when people like really appreciate it,
Yeah.
even though it might be an issue.
It's such an opportunity to pull it back, isn't it?
Mm.
If a customer's had a bad experience.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to disarm a customer that may be less than delighted just because the expectation of a response is not there. There's so many services out there with less than stellar credentials that the default expectation is I'm not going to get a solution to what I'm looking for. But when you hear from a person that's using, warmth and empathy in their tone, it's really easy to get closer to a solution, if not finding the actual solution.
That makes a lot of sense, and particularly from my experiences, both as a customer and from customer service, I can 100% agree with that, Tina. Now, guys, we do have our poll results finished, and I will share them. In terms of how a lot of our participants seem to get these larger purchases and encouraging the customers onto their store, seems to be that 53% of you are seeing this free shipping as an option. Is free shipping something that Tina and Bailey, something you guys offer with your stores?
Yeah, so we offer free shipping in the US over $250. I believe the same in Australia right now. And then in New Zealand, we're currently offering free shipping on all orders because we've just started shipping out directly out of Auckland. So
Nice.
yeah, but that's temporary, like shipping is a huge cost to a business. It greatly affects your margin. And so you have to know when to pull that lever and whether or not it's going to give you the return. So I definitely wouldn't recommend just chucking on free shipping without doing any of that like analysis of your margin and where that point comes where it's viable. I mean, again, like it's also about the product that you're shipping and where you're shipping it to. So free local shipping is definitely obviously a lot more sustainable, but free international shipping really isn't. I mean, in this day and age at the moment, for us and the business that we have is just not viable. If you're selling something that, fits into an A4 sleeve and weighs 20 grams, but you're charging $500 for it, then there's probably some fat in there for you to offer free shipping. But unfortunately, towels just don't lend themselves to that same option, unfortunately.
Wow. Tina? What about
So
you?
we have subscription offerings where you can opt in to have a product sent every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever increment that you like. Anyone who has bought a subscription, I think since March, we started offering free shipping. No minimum. If you're on a subscription, you're going to get free shipping. Otherwise, if you're buying a one-off purchase, in New Zealand, you need a $75 minimum. We've done things before where we'll have free shipping holidays and promote them by email, and those do pretty well. We've also brought down the free shipping minimum to about $45 and just wanted to see, does it impact revenue? And we didn't see a noticeable change. So one of the things that's tricky with free shipping is you kind of want to know, okay, at what threshold is it worthwhile to offer free shipping? How does that work with our margins? Like what Bailey said about offering free shipping versus what the hit it's going to take to your margins is like incredibly important. We know that free shipping works, customers expect it. But again, as Bailey said, shipping is incredibly expensive right now. So what's the trade-offs between offering free shipping versus your margins? It absolutely works, but if you're offering and you're not making money, then it actually isn't working for you.
Yeah, simple as that. If it's not working, if you're not making the revenue or the profit, then it's nice, but not the way you need to go. Now I'm going to move a little bit left field so we can sort of move on at the last stages of this webinar. We just really wanted to talk to you, Jono, about this concept of B2B and B2C. Obviously, Shopify is a B2C platform on at face value, but it does offer some B2B functionalities. Do you see many people with B2B or B2C or both?
Yeah. B2C and B2B, they're fundamentally different business models. But what's happening is that they're slowly converging. So, B2B brands, for example, want to test some of their best-selling products direct to consumer, and they can do that through Shopify. And then on the flip side, a B2C brand might be wanting to start distributing to retailers around the place. So, that's where we see things converging. But within Shopify, we've just released our B2B on Shopify product, which is exclusive to Shopify Plus. And that really just supports both types of scenarios there. So it's really unifying that B2B experience, a B2B and B2C experience into the one storefront, and just being able to, allow merchants to consider how they can sell wholesale and start selling in that fashion too, to really grow their overall revenue. Yeah.
That's a fantastic. I mean, so you said that there's these processes, these functions for Shopify Plus that we can use to help it. Is there any other plugins that you sort of feel are quite big or quite big things?
Plugins in general,
plugins that you see that you. Sorry, that was a horrible question. I just got a chat pop up as I was doing it. How did you? Are there any other plugins that you would sort of recommend or that you see people picking up in a big way?
Plugins wise, I guess from a loyalty perspective, there are some pretty good apps out there from email marketing as well. I know within Shopify we offer a lot of these things too. But really, we're trying to support the ecosystem and meet merchants at their stage in the journey, and then having our partners, our app partners that are there to be able to pull in those types of to support those merchants as they grow. So, for example, some of these apps are like Klaviyo, as well as Yotpo. Those apps we've also supported across their journey, and we will continue to do so.
Fantastic. I'm sure plugins or apps like Unleash probably help as well.
Definitely.
Just our own little plug-in there. Look, guys, everyone, we are only 4 minutes left for the webinar here, so I am seriously sorry we are not going to be able to do the Q&A session as we didn't initially think we would. But as I said earlier at the start of the session, we will be sort of answering those questions post the fact with a combination of the panelists here. They're responding to your questions, so they will get answered. You will get some additional value. It's the webinar that keeps on giving. With that in mind, though, we will dive into one last final question and this is for everyone on the panel here. This is for Jono, Tina, Bailey. If you had one piece of advice to give people wanting to start or to optimize their Shopify store, is there any simple tips or hacks that perhaps could make their lives a little bit easier?
I guess like from our end, I think, every business is very different when they begin in terms of budgets and things like that. I think, for us, it's been about building out key partners around us. And so obviously Shopify was one, with launching our e-commerce store when we first started. Unleashed was the other, with taking care of all of our inventory management. And I think, like, for me, the best advice I'd give is just making sure that you're surrounding yourself with, a wealth of knowledge and leveraging off things like this, like coming to webinars and just learning about other people's experiences. Like, it's all dependent on budget and things like that, but ultimately, you don't know everything. In fact, we barely know much, but at the end of the day, you want to be surrounding yourself with experts in field, best-in-class practices, and that way, I think ultimately you'll create a really strong and well-rounded business.
Phenomenal tip. I hope we haven't lost you just then. No, it's just my screen that you're frozen on. Sorry about that, guys. Tina, what about you?
Yeah, I think my simplest piece of advice would be take a look at other e-com sites before you go live. And if you see something that you like, email them, because chances are it will probably read that email. And as long as it's not like very direct competition or there's proprietary info they can set to the side, chances are they're more than willing to share their learnings with you, because it's really, really hard to do something that you don't know how to do and you don't know who to go to, and you don't know what your resources are. So a lot of people I find want to pay it forward. I've done it to others, merchants, and other merchants have done it to me. And it's a great way to build up a network of support as you go live and beyond.
It's amazing how kind people can be if you give them the chance to step up, isn't it? And Jono, what about you? What tips and hacks that you might have?
Yeah, I mean, Tina and Bailey covered this multiple times. I just wanted to like round it out with it. And it's about testing and experimentation. They've mentioned multiple times, listening to the customer, testing different techniques, different promos, all that kind of stuff. Like being able to build that into the DNA of your company will really see how you can have a step change forward. So I really recommend testing.
Iteration is no longer reserved for sort of Toyota style lean manufacturing. It can be for anything. Fantastic. I love it. I love it. Okay, guys. Well, look, it's 2:00. We have hit the end of our time. I am once again so sorry that we couldn't address the Q&A live, but we will be, as I said, answering those questions. With that in mind, I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to Jono from Shopify, from Tina from Two Islands, and of course Bailey at Boehner for joining us here on the panel and giving us their time and their experience. Honestly, guys, we love you for it, me and Danny, and I'm sure the participants that are on the call also appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the participants for joining us. I hope you got something out of this. Keep an eye out for emails to your questions, and of course emails, follow-up emails, so you can review this later on and email us back with feedback or even with more questions. All that's going to be available, so keep an eye out on your inbox there. And with that in mind, thanks again, everyone. I hope you have a phenomenal day, and cheers.